the post-pandemic supply chain workforce. Well, joining us today to speak about that, Jarah Euston, co-founder and CEO of WorkWhile. Jarah, it's great to see you. Welcome.
Thank you, Russell.
Jarah, clearly we are in the post-pandemic time. So I'm just wondering, if you look at the landscape right now in supply chain, when it comes to the workforce, what are the trends that you are witnessing? Walk us through that. What do you see?
Well, I think we've all come out of a once-in-a-century event with the pandemic, and a lot has changed with the overall labor market, and the supply chain industry is no different than others. And what we've seen is that there was a trend that started with salaried white-collar office workers that started right before the pandemic, but really blew up during the pandemic, and that's increased flexibility for the workforce. Office workers now get to work from home. They can decide when and where they're going to be online. And what we saw during the pandemic is that hourly workers, the volume, the vast number of employees in supply chain also got a little bit of a taste of that. And I think after the pandemic, the genie is out of the bottle, and all workers, no matter if you're part of the office workforce or you're on the floor of the distribution center or you're a delivery driver, everybody now is craving that flexibility that they started to experience during COVID, when it wasn't for fun, but it was for safety, that we needed that flexibility. And so what you're going to see and what we're seeing now is there's this huge trend, especially among hourly workers, who want to be able to craft their own schedule and work when it makes sense for their life, just like a lot of office workers have had the opportunity to do.
One of the things that we have seen, of course, is so many office workers want to continue to work remotely. Now, how much of that is actually possible in the supply chain world?
Well, I don't think remote is necessarily possible for the high volume roles in supply chain, but I think the name of the game and the key word is flexibility. In fact, McKinsey did a study last year and found that now 36 million Americans are working what they would call flexible jobs. So that's either a consultant or you're working for a gig platform and you're crafting your own schedule. And what we know for the 76 million Americans who work hourly jobs, some of them are part of that flexible workforce already. And what we've seen in our research is that 63% of people who are working in a flexible capacity, including in supply chain, have been doing it for more than a year now. So this is a trend that may be accelerated during COVID, but it's continuing, and I think it's here to stay. For supply chain jobs, what that means is more flexible routes for drivers. They get to pick up shifts when they want to drive. The same thing for distribution center staff and other types of light industrial jobs are moving more to a flexible way so that they can attract and retain more talent.
You know, I think the elephant in the room when it comes to talking about workforces, no matter what the vertical might be, is that, well, I can't seem to get enough talent. So I'm just curious, does the flexibility that you're talking about tend to solve that problem? Are you able, because of flexibility, able to recruit and retain the right kind of workforce and in the right numbers? Walk us through that.
Flexibility is a key talent attraction and retention mechanism, right? Imagine that you have a job where you get to opt in to when and where you work, and it's paying you the same or more than a traditional 9 to 5, where you're going to get your schedule with maybe a week's notice, some cases less than a week's notice. How do you plan your life around that? If you're faced with those two options, it's very obvious which one someone is going to choose. So we're seeing with companies that are moving to allow for a little bit more flexibility, they're having workers stay because they're able to deal with their lives and other pressures, their families, school, whatever is happening. They can come back to that job and pick up those shifts and perform again. You don't have to totally retrain someone, get to know someone else. You give a little bit of grace and allow people to live their life.
So the viewer is saying to him or herself, well, adapting to this record low unemployment atmosphere environment that we find ourselves in, not that difficult. It can be done. Is that right?
I think that's right. Look, there are almost 10 million open jobs in the United States. Before the pandemic, we were at record low unemployment. We're back to record low unemployment, 3.5% unemployment. It is tough to find the right talent. And flexibility is one of the key benefits and ways that you can get the right people in the door.
So if a viewer were to say, look, I need some advice on what are the most important features that I need to be aware of, if I'm looking for folks to fill the supply chain jobs that I have, what would you tell that viewer?
I would tell them the number one priority for most supply chain workers, these are hourly folks in your DCs, your delivery drivers, the P0, the number one priority is pay, right? It makes sense. There's a lot of wage pressure. We have a lot of inflationary pressure. People are going to make decisions based on where they can earn money. But a close second there is going to be that flexibility of, am I able to take that Wednesday off because my kid has something to do? So being able to be the master of your own schedule is of critical importance. And the last thing I'll mention, the third priority for workers is, what's my cost to get to this job? What's the total cost of ownership of this position? Am I going to have to pay for the wear and tear on my vehicle? Am I going to have to commute a long distance with rising gas prices? Am I going to have to get a car because there's no public transportation to this facility? And that's something employers need to always be thinking about in the back of their mind when they're planning where they're going to be staffing workers and where they're going to be building new facilities.
Jarah, I hear right now a viewer saying, I'm liking what Jarah is saying. I'm finding the information interesting and valuable, but I'd like to know a little bit more about WorkWhile itself. So if you would, just take a moment, tell us a little something about the focus of the company. How are you optimizing operations of those customers that you're working with? What would you say?
WorkWhile is a worker-first hourly labor marketplace. So we're a platform that helps companies build this flexible workforce, where workers sign up to the WorkWhile platform. They go through a pretty onerous onboarding screening process, and then they're able to opt into the shifts that they want to work so that they can craft their own 40-hour work week. And we help them be successful by doing things like pay next day, offering free skills training. You can get forklift certified for free on the platform, virtual healthcare benefits, and a whole host of other perks for the worker. But for the customer, and I think most important to your audience, is this is the way that you can scale your labor costs up or down to match them with your production demands. You don't have to have folks on staff that are idle. You can call them on demand and really be cost conscious and match when you need the labor to when you have the work. And that can be transformational for companies in increasing their efficiency and really saving time and effort and money for their bottom line.
Well, truly a comprehensive initiative and way to approach the workforce today. Jarah, I know you're busy here at the conference, but you found time to speak with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Russell.
That's Jarah Euston, WorkWhile, speaking with us today about the pandemic, post-pandemic supply chain workforce. Thanks for watching.